Mr. Speaker, on a more serious point of order, Mr. Speaker, you have outlined a very serious process that is required to deal with a motion of this magnitude. Mr. Speaker, you've even gone ahead to indicate that this is an historic moment because there's never been another deputy speaker who has been removed from office or such a debate of this kind of removal of the deputy speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, what befalls the deputy speaker under the standing order and the Constitution befalls the speaker. It may not be the current speaker, it can be any other speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know from your office, was the deputy speaker served with the charges for his removal? Was he also, Mr. Speaker, notified? No, Mr. Speaker, was he notified? Because it's in your communication. Was he notified of this sitting, plus the charges? And was he, Mr. Speaker, given the opportunity to get the charges against him? So that, Mr. Speaker, when we go to the motion, at least you lay ground as part of your communication. I would have wished to hear from your communication that there was a notice of motion given by Senator Kenyatta of Muranga, that, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to that motion, some charges were provided. Your office facilitated the deputy speaker to be notified of these charges, then prepare himself, so that when we go to the motion itself, the foundation of this motion will have been achieved, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Leader of Minority.
Mr. Speaker, since Senator Murkomen is insisting on this question, let him cite the constitutional provisions that require that in such a motion, sit down. You know, you don't know even the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, see what he's doing.
Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, he should specify the provisions of the Constitution that require that charges be made available to any speaker or deputy speaker on whom a motion of removal has been tabled in the House. He should cite the standing orders, which states clearly that their charges are supposed to be given to the deputy speaker or the speaker when such a motion is tabled. In reference to the removal of the president or the vice president, the Constitution is very clear. It's very clear in the Constitution and in the standing orders that the charges must be laid before a debate can take place. So without further ado, it's a simple question. Mr. Speaker, we have not come to the motion itself. Let him read the standing order. Since he rose on a matter or point of order, read to the Speaker what that standing order says and the requirement under that standing order. Read to the Speaker the Constitution and what the requirements of the Constitution require. And finally, Mr. Speaker, a motion to remove a speaker or a deputy speaker is not a trial. It's not an impeachment. We are not going to call witnesses like in the case of an impeachment. No lawyers are allowed in the chamber for purposes of prosecuting an impeachment trial. There is no impeachment. Senator Professor Kindiki Kithure is not under trial. This is simply a motion for removal.
Point of order.
Order, we want to make progress.
Mr. Speaker, I've been challenged.
I've not given you order.
I've been challenged, Mr. Speaker, to substantiate.
Order, Senator Murkomen.
I've been challenged, Mr. Speaker, it's on the record.
But
I need to substantiate the basis of my argument because it was my point of order.
Okay, take your seat. I give you an opportunity first.
Okay, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Murkomen. I said, let us just cool down and prosecute. Yes, Senator Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is deplorable. It's actually laughable that human rights defenders of yesterday, Mr. Speaker, are presiding over a process, Mr. Speaker. I have not said.
Speaker, we are not going to
order, members.
Let him announce
order.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Murkomen, order.
Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order.
Order, Senator, leader.
I am
order, members.
I am reading the section.
Okay, wait, order, Senator Murkomen. Listen, please. We are honorable members.
Correct.
The world is watching. Go back to what I said in my communication. Let us use decorum. Let us respect each other. Let us not insinuate. Let us not use a language that demeans or casts aspersion against your colleagues. It's so directed.
Mr. Speaker, I have not mentioned any name, although they say that if you mention, like Chinua Achebe said, if you mention dry bones, it's all the women who get uncomfortable. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is very clear in Article 47, which says, Mr. Speaker, every person, including Professor Kithure Kindiki, has the right to administrative action that is expeditious, efficient, lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. If a right of a fundamental freedom of a person has been or is likely to be adversely affected by the administrative action, the person has a right to be given written reasons for the action. Mr. Speaker, in line with this Article 47, the National Assembly, in its standing orders, provided a long the Speaker procedure of how to notify the Deputy Speaker and the Speaker if you want to remove them. Mr. Speaker, you cannot say, and it is not legally sound, to argue, Mr. Speaker, that you are going to engage in a serious constitutional process to remove a constitutional office holder, and, Mr. Speaker, pretend to say that the other articles of the Constitution are not going to apply. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record. The process we are going through is a process that will be in history for the next 100, 200 years. This house, Mr. Speaker, led by its majority leader, Kipchumba Murkomen, went to the High Court, Mr. Speaker, to challenge procedures that have been floated by the Executive and National Assembly. This House, Mr. Speaker, has just got a ruling from the Supreme Court of processes that have been floated. This House cannot continue calling itself the upper house and run a removal of its deputy in a kangaroo manner, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker,
yes.
You've heard Senator Murkomen referring to the Senate as a kangaroo court continuously. And he should not be addressing us if he thinks we're a kangaroo court. Secondly, he wants to mislead the House that the case that was filed in the High Court, that he led the senators in that case. In fact, he didn't utter a word in that case. It was me and Professor Kindiki who led in that case. I was the senior counsel in that case. He's a very junior person when it comes to matters of law. Very junior. So he should not be preaching as if he knows the law, and he cannot cite a case which has been quoted in the law reports of him ever having prosecuted even a case in the Supreme Court. Can he mention even one case he has prosecuted in the Supreme Court? But the point is this. There is a decision of the High Court sitting in Machakos where a similar case was taken before the High Court, in which the County Assembly in Machakos removed the Deputy Speaker. And I think, Ms. Murkomen, if you want me to give you judicial decisions on what is administrative action, go and read Professor Wade. That book, if you have not read it, then I would understand why you don't appear in constitutional and administrative
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
division.
Point of order,
Yeah,
Mr.
you
Speaker.
started it.
What's your point of order, Senator?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Orengo has over and over again insulted me and insulted my education.
Order.
Mr. Speaker,
Order,
and you have
members.
kept quiet. No, let me raise my point of order.
What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Orengo is over and over again repeating and doubting my practice of law or, Mr. Speaker, my knowledge of law. Mr. Speaker, Senator Orengo and I went to the same university, even if the difference was 26 years. I got a second upper. Senator Orengo got a second law. I have 2 master's degree, he has none. I have taught 2 students, Mr. Speaker. I have taught 2 students, Mr. Speaker, who are in this house.
Order,
Who is he to lecture me? Who is he?
Order, Senator Murkomen.